Well, eventually, the adventures of the first Doctor, of course, had to come to an end. Well, not because of storytelling, but because of poor William Hartnell's health was failing him at the time, and they realized, well, the show's really still hot, so we need to keep moving on. The companions had changed, but what to do about the star? And so for that reason, the concept of regeneration is introduced in this at the end of this final story, The 10th Planet, which also introduced the Cybermen. Basically, there's the 10th planet is Mondas, and it's basically a parallel Earth, if you will, and it's on a collision course with the Earth, and those people decided that the evolution required that they seek immortality through becoming cyborgs, and so the Cybermen were born, but just about every aspect of their humanity is gone. Well, their plan is, hey, why should Mondas perish? Let's just destroy the Earth. So that's the deal. Now the setup here could have easily have been a Patrick Troughton episode. A lot of Troughton's episodes, and they say it as a weakness, I suppose, because of the repetition. But nevertheless, the basic template here is a space station in trouble, or in this case, a base in trouble. It's not in space, but still, that's pretty much what you got here. And there's a space mission going on, and there's astronauts in trouble, and they're trying to guide them in, and then, here come the Cybermen from Mondas. And so there you are, and the Doctor and his friends, Ben and Polly, arrive, and they get in the middle of all this, and the Doctor figures it out. But at the same time, there's quite a few scenes where there's no Doctor, because, well, yeah, the problems for Hartnell were getting pretty bad, but it worked for the story in the sense that they even had the Doctor collapse at one point because he's not well, and this is the reason for his regeneration that happens. And so it's too bad that this, like a lot of Hartnell's episodes, are lost forever except for audio recordings of them. And boy, I tell you, every episode of this adventure is available except the last one, the most important one, where there's still some amount of footage of the actual regeneration where you can see them superimposing Troughton's face over Hartnell's. And Troughton and Hartnell kind of had similar features in a way. When you see it superimposed like that, it kind of works. And I don't know if that's what the thinking was, that, this will be a younger version of Hartnell, and that's basically, he just got younger rather than turning into someone different. But moving forward, yeah, that's what happens. You don't just get younger, you turn into someone entirely different. So and the recent Peter Capaldi's last episode, where he goes back and meets himself at this moment, and it fits in with the idea that the Doctor was almost terrified of this because he had never done it before, and he didn't know what was going to happen, what would he become. And so it's all understandable, and that was one of the good aspects of that. There were other aspects it wasn't so great when Twice Upon a Time, but anyway, a nice little bit of aspect there on the story of the first Doctor regenerating and to a new incarnation. So that's what you have here. The Cybermen are interesting in this form. Is very not quite as recognizable as their later incarnations, which have a lot more similarities between them as it develops, because, well, costuming and effects get better as time goes by. But the original look of them, and this is another thing that Capaldi added in his final, where they brought that look back, and you could see how you could utilize just how creepy and spooky these guys looked. So it actually kind of works, and now I'm thinking they might want to go back to those a little bit here and there. But the other thing was how they spoke, and they actually made an attempt here to make them sort of alien, even though, like the Daleks actually look very alien in their form. There's no humanity there in the form of their what do you call it, tanks, I guess. And here with the Cybermen, and how they're speaking and whatnot is very odd and bizarre looking. But at the same time, both the Daleks and the Cybermen come from a form of humanity. So it's kind of strange, but in the same way, it gives some interesting appearances here. So the Cybermen in their manner of speaking is that the actor playing them would just open their mouth and then the dialogue would come out. So, Cyberman, this sort of thing. And it was kind of silly looking, but at the same time, it's so weird and bizarre. Well, they're aliens, and you don't know what to expect. And the main point of it was they had managed to prolong their lives, but at the cost of their humanity, their soul, if you will. And they had no more emotions. Although I would argue the Cybermen do have the emotion of hatred and anger, because quite a few times they got pretty mad at the Doctor when he got the better of them. But here, I think Polly was their plan is going to result in the deaths of millions, or billions rather. And he says, "Oh, that's terrible! All these people would die. And don't you care?" "No, why should I? People die all the time, and no one cares." Oh yeah, you got a point there. But anyway, it's an interesting visual thing, and he was like, "Oh boy, if only they'd had better costuming abilities and whatnot, they would have all been metal and looked more like robots, like the later versions we have now." And well, not necessarily. The idea is that they probably still have some amount of flesh left there, with some amount of parts and implants put on. And they're probably so hideous after the surgeries, they just have those the masks on and whatnot, And so this is the early stages of the technology of the Cybermen, and they progress. They get better and better, and they come up with different mechanisms, and they perfect things. As for a while, they came up with this idea that if you sprayed gold dust into their breathing apparatus, they would choke and die on it and all that sort of thing. And so you can do, well, we got to fix that. So I'm guessing they did. And so it makes sense that each time there's a new development as the Cybermen go forward. But here, it's the early days. Now, apparently there was some connection to their planet that kept them going, some sort of power source. It's not really explained, but when Mondas is destroyed in order to save the Earth, all the Cybermen collapse. Now, this one was done obviously as a one-off thing, but it's not long after that they return. So it's like, well, how did they survive? Well, you had a few special Cybermen elsewhere, I guess, because eventually they go to their second home, which is Telos, and so on and so forth. But a fun little romp here where you've got basically a base in trouble and a hard-nosed military man who gets irritated with the Doctor's intellectual superiority here and this sort of thing, and then doesn't trust them, and why should he? In the middle of this problem, and all of a sudden they've got invading robots and these people just show up in this Arctic landscape, and it's like, well, what's going on here? And plus his son was one of the astronauts and all this sort of thing. So there you go. But of course, again, sadly, there's no record of the episode beyond the audio, and of course it's been animated now, so you have that. But really sad. Now when they did the David Bradley for the Capaldi's final episode, and they recreated some of the scenes from 10th Planet, I kind of wish they'd have went ahead and shot the whole thing and just because it would look cool. But yeah, what are you gonna do? So sadly, Hartnell had to leave under those conditions. I imagine he would have continued on with the show had his health held up for a while. And who knows, the show might have gone on just under him, and if they thought it was waning in popularity, then it would have ended, and the idea that he could just turn into another actor might never have happened. But this is how it goes, and you got to start somewhere, and things build up as you go, because all the ideas of regeneration, no one knew about it until this episode. So there you go, the first time the Doctor regenerated. And I don't care what retcons people want to do later. This was the first time it happened. There's got to be a first time for everything. This is the first time the Doctor was forced to regenerate because he was ill, from age and what have you, and his body was breaking down, and so the regeneration kicks in, and then we get Patrick Troughton. And we'll be looking at Patrick Troughton episodes. Sadly, again, just as bad as losing the final episode of 10th Planet, the power of the Daleks, gone, except, of course, the audio. And yes, there's been an animated version. And good, to have that, and it's great to watch, but at the same time, the animation doesn't quite translate to what was originally intended, because you got a lot of strange pauses and stuff where the cartoon characters don't seem to look like they don't know what to do, because we don't know what's going on in these pauses, and that's obvious. Body language and whatnot was being relayed on screen, but you've lost it. So it seems some of that got lost in translation, it appears. But nevertheless, that's as good as it gets. We can't seem to recover those. Apparently they're gone forever, and that's too bad. But so yeah, I'll start reviewing the Troughton episodes I have. I only have a few, just like with Hartnell, and we'll keep going. So there you go, William Hartnell, the end of the first Doctor in the 10th Planet, and a fine episode it was, and also quite the precursor of things to come for Doctor Who. All right, thank you for watching and listening. Please like and share and subscribe. And if you didn't like it, thanks anyway. I appreciate you taking the time to watch it. And for those of you who have subscribed, thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And hey, while everybody's here, why not check out that link description below? That'll take you to my many stores that have plenty of goodies for you.